Everybody, how you doing today? I thought I'd show you an update on this Dreadnought that I've been building. I refrain from calling it a Skaar destroyer because it may not end up being Skaar now. Had a little conversation with another author there, and it's just like, well, I'm trying to change the look so much that it's not really going to fit with Skaar, and it doesn't really fit with the lure that I was trying to do a little bit with Skaar, and it's going to be textured differently and a lot of different things. So I don't know. I don't know exactly. It could actually end up being a human creation now. But what I've been doing, and a lot of this has been slow going, but I've been trying to come up with a method of texturing the surface of this, and but have it look the same in space typically. So like this section over here, you can see there's a lot of other textures in here. Some of those textures to put into the mix, I had to make custom little off shades of gray to do it so they match correctly. But from a little bit of a distance, you can't even tell that I textured it, which is fine because I kind of wanted to keep that gray look, that pretty flat gray look for the entire body, and depend on the shadows for most of the details. So this is a lot of experimentation over here, just trying to figure out how the heck am I going to texture this big body. And my problem is in space, especially from a little distance, it looks pretty decent. Everything kind of ties together all right. But when you get close up to this, or if you bring it into the atmosphere of a planet, just seeing this flat nothing going on here with all these zigzaggy lines that don't connect to anything doesn't look very good. It looks good in the right lighting, like what I'm showing now. It looks typically all right, especially at a distance. But I got to make it look better close up. So when you're actually up in this thing, it needs to look better. So that's one thing. So the other area that I worked on here, and also trying to do a lot of experimentation, is how is the interior going to look. And this is what I came up with so far. And the idea behind what I'm doing is basically really dark floors, but I want to get some detail into them as well. And then white walls. And that's the basic general concept. But I'm trying to use a whole lot of textures that I haven't really used much of, especially for quite a long time. Like for instance, this particular metal wall texture here, I think actually looks pretty good in a creation like this, especially on the white. I can't use it on dark surfaces, but I can use it on the white surfaces. And here, let me turn on the light here, so you can kind of see what I'm trying to accomplish. Trying to give it that really high-tech Star Wars kind of feel, but I might do a little bit more research into Star Wars and take a look at some maybe a Star Wars movie, or at least clips, to get some better ideas on the interiors of some of their ships and things like that, to do stuff like that. Now, don't mind what I've actually got here. It's not going to have tons of these small constructors on both sides of the hangar. I'm just I put something there for now. I'm actually trying to work out the storage areas back in the hangar, and trying to make things so it's quick and easy to get around. And the function part of the ship, which would be towards the back of the ship, kind of where I'm at. And you have your bridge that's right up above over here. Now, I do plan on having a second deck on this hangar too. I'm trying to work out the how I'm going to pull that off. I think there's going to be a platform that comes up over here that'll allow like tanks and stuff to be parked down there, and maybe like an SV or a couple SVs up over here. I'll try to figure all that out. I gotta lay it out, but most of my time, this wall took far too long to make, but it was just trying to figure out the textures. And here, let me just kind of show you what happened to the color palette here. You see all these grays, like all these bazillions of grays, and they're a little bit disorganized right now. This has to do with toning textures to fit with one another. Like my interior base wall color is now this. I took it up. It's a little bit brighter than what some of the outside colors are. But then I had to make this other tone, which is very similar to this one, and this one's very similar to the one in front of it, but it has to do with, like, when I put on this texture, and then I use the smooth metal that I've done in some places here, they don't exactly match. They're like, their tones are different when you paint them. So what I had to do is correct that and put them next to each other, set one to one color, set the tone so it matches the other color. And I had to do the same thing with with some of the darks too that I'm putting in here. Um, so they all kind of match. So basically, at the end of the day, I'm gonna have like a set of textures that I use for doing like the white areas and a set of textures that I use for doing the dark areas. And once you build this palette up with all these different colors of gray, um, you have to paint that particular texture, that color every time. So it's kind of like you're doing a particular material. Like I'm going to use this material, and it's being used on a wall. So that means I gotta not use this shade, but I got to use this shade so it matches with the other thing. And then if I use it for the ceiling, which is a tone down, then I've got to use this shade for the ceiling. And if I want to get some little accents, like maybe a little brighter surface on one side than the other, then it's just going to need all these different grays. And it's not because I think it's cool to make bazillions of different shades of gray. It's just it has to do with trying to blend all this together to look right, so they all fit together. So textures that I typically wouldn't use are working, and that has given me a lot of ideas on the hull too. So I might try that again a little bit on the hull. Maybe I could get in this texture, the smooth metal textures in certain places, and keep a lot of the rough metal textures, and dial them all together color-wise so they fit together. We'll see how that goes. But once I get this hanger wrapped up and figure out all the functionality and the storage and the stuff you're gonna have back here, then I got an awful lot more ship to do. Um, this whole area up here is this giant section, and if you were to split this up into like 2 block ceilings, this would be like a good 3 to 4 floors of stuff in here, and that's a lot of stuff. That's a lot of interior space, even if I pad it with Xeno, which I plan on doing. Speaking of that, so I've been kind of adapting a little practice for that as well, and I've done it a little bit in some areas. Like this wall over here, these are Xeno blocks, and what I'm doing is you got combat steel on the outside, inner row of Xeno on the inside, and then I'm going to try to bury those Xeno blocks so they're not typically visible. Or in very unique cases, like if you get out here, I've actually got some exposed Xeno right in this section. But it was kind of handcrafted to do that. So you got this neat little black area in there, and I've got something like that going on below the thrusters back over here as well. But every time I replace a combat steel block with a Xeno block, I'm lessening the weight of the ship a little bit. And there'll be opportunities. If I can find more of these Xeno textures that can work into the mix too, I could probably put in more Xeno into the ship. And the whole point is to make it as strong and as light as I can. Now, it's not a light ship. It's a big ship. It's built of combat steel. It's not going to be light, but everything helps. And I rather like. I know I brought up and I said that, I did like most all these little wedge pieces in the corners here, like this is carbon, and you'll see that this is combat steel, combat steel, combat steel, but the smallest piece is carbon. Yeah, I get the point that, yeah, they're still strong and it still helps with defense, but I rather be more in control of the defense in that. So by making the choice of doing all these little wedge pieces throughout the entire hull of the ship as carbon, and of course all the little doodad little trimmy things out here, that is a huge amount of weight reduction. It doesn't seem like it would be that much, like if you do like 1 out of every 4 blocks on the hull, and not even we're just talking on the angles. But when you look at this many blocks on the ship, that comes out to be thousands of blocks that are carbon that would have been combat steel, which makes a fairly significant weight difference in the end. If I also get more Xeno into the mix, or things like that, or that will also help. And everything I can do is kind of a bonus, because I'd much rather like just fill in like what I've been doing, and you'll see this all across the front too. I'll like look at every corner, like, hey, how exposed to the outside is this? Is this defending anything? Is this like part of the main body armor? So let's go through here. We'll fill in like all these blocks over here with Xeno, and then work out like some kind of inner frame inside of that and stuff like that. And I've got blocks in here too that are part of building that don't need to be here, like all these blocks you're just seeing right here sticking out of nothing. So there's more weight reduction to be taking place there too. And I'm not super worried about the weight. It's just I want it to be tough. I want it to be durable. I want it to be very hard to take down. I'm trying to figure out the layout. Originally, I kind of wanted to put all the business back over here. We're talking generators, shield, warp core, and all that. There is room, for sure, but I got to really figure out what the heck I'm doing with this space over here, because this is a very large space. Undoubtedly, if I did not have these Helios bays in here, the hangar would have probably stretched all the way up to this area here, and it would have been a really big hangar. But the Helios bays are seriously cutting into that, dividing it right down the middle, which is kind of sucks a little bit. But I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. Hangar space is cheap with size class and CPU, and that is one of the things why a big ship like this, I would like to have a bigger hangar, because it's cheap. And other things aren't so cheap. Farms are also cheap. That's another reason why I wouldn't mind putting at least a potential area for a farm, even though, yes, I'm totally aware you can bring in a Helios module with tons of farm plots and just use that and not have to have farms in the main ship. But man, I got a lot of space to fill in this ship, and I plan on putting some fluff in here for sure, carbon substrate hallways and fluffy things, but the more of that I could actually have to actually do some kind of game function, probably the better. I don't know. We'll see how it all comes out. And I'm just curious your thoughts on what I'm going for is right now on the interior. Do you think that works right? Do you think it should again look like Skaar? And on the exterior, do you kind of like this setup? You see, my alt idea, and I'll have to try it again, would be to color match a bunch of these textures, kind of like I did a little bit here with the gray, but maybe incorporate in that other metal texture, but then I might have to lighten the surface on the outside a little bit more, so the white lines don't show up so bad. Well, actually, I got some of that texture right here, too. It really doesn't look so bad. It would look bad if it was dark. It would look bad if it was dark, but yeah, I don't know. Try to figure it out. I really care about this one. I really want to get it right, and I got to just create, since it's a kind of like a one-off, like I'm creating a new faction out of this. I don't necessarily plan on doing that, but I'm just saying I gotta really dial this in and get it right before I start like doing everything else with it. And I did the same process with the original Skaar Raider and the Kriel Gas. Those were the first of those factions, similar to the MCR and Tachi. But Tachi, at least I had pictures I could look at on the Hall stuff. This one I'm kind of like winging it. But anyway, that's all I've got for today. If you got any questions, comments, ideas, suggestions, please let me know. I do read them all. Also, I found a whole bunch of unread comments that I had from before. I just said I read them all, but no, it's a YouTube thing. It's like it doesn't tell me I got any new comments, and then one day all of a sudden there's like, hey, there's 50 unread comments. Where do they come from? Oh, this one's from like 4 months ago. I'm like, oh, great. So it happened again. I don't know what happens with that. I apologize for that. I do try to read them all. Anyway, y'all have yourself a good day. I will talk to you later.